Hey everyone, it's me, Saul. Welcome in. What do you actually know about Walmart? That it's a market leader in tech and hardware sales? It is the biggest dot on the supermarket business in the US. But what do you think was happening to the workers behind the closed doors of this giant back in the 2000s? Behind the facade of low prices and friendly signs lies a cold corporate reality of dark secrets, where human beings are turned into faceless numbers and a renewable resource, and control methods closely resemble the practices of totalitarian intelligence agencies. One of the most chilling and cynical chapters in the retailer's history was a massive legal scandal involving the covert insurance of its employees, which earned a grim, unofficial name in the industry: Dead Peasants Insurance. In the late 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s, the company's management secretly, without the knowledge or consent of hundreds of thousands of their rank-and-file workers, loaders, cashiers, janitors, took out life insurance policies on them. The twist of this scheme was that if an employee died suddenly, the money went nowhere near their grieving family, children, or spouses. The sole and rightful beneficiary of the payout was Walmart itself. Simply put, the company received colossal checks ranging from $50,000 to $100,000 every time someone on their staff died from a heart attack, illness, or an accident. The company's legal entities justified this as an attempt to offset the costs of healthcare benefits for living employees. But when the truth came to light through a series of lawsuits in Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida, the public shuddered at the sheer scale of cynicism. Relatives of the deceased workers could not get a single cent for years, while Walmart cashed in millions of dollars on the deaths of its own people. Parallel to this, the corporation was building an unprecedented system of total surveillance over its staff, deploying methods worthy of the KGB or the CIA. Any attempts by employees to unionize to protect their rights were crushed at the root. A special covert rapid response team was created at the headquarters in Bentonville, the assessment and logistics team. As soon as whispers about workers' rights began circulating among cashiers in any part of the country, this team of professional spies was immediately dispatched. They embedded informants, planted hidden bugs in break rooms, tapped phones, and analyzed employees' social media activity. If a strike or the creation of a local union branch could not be suffocated from within, Walmart acted radically. The store would simply be shut down within 24 hours, officially citing sudden technical malfunctions or plumbing issues, laying off hundreds of people in a single day just to prevent a protest that could severely damage the company's reputation from spreading across the entire network. But the darkest and most terrifying turn in this story occurred in 2018, when conspiracy theories about turning supermarkets into government camps suddenly collided with a harsh, documented reality on the southern border of the United States. As part of the government's zero-tolerance policy against undocumented immigrants, the forced separation of families began on a massive scale. Children of all ages, from infants to teenagers, were torn away from their parents and taken to unknown destinations. And it was a former closed Walmart hypermarket building in the city of Brownsville, Texas, that was transformed into one of the largest detention facilities for minors, known as Casa Padre. It is an absolute horror what they did to those people at the time. The massive box of a shopping center, where aisles of electronics and toys used to stand, was hastily converted. Hundreds of sleeping quarters were built inside, where 5 people slept in rooms designed for 4, and giant murals with quotes from American presidents were painted on the walls for some twisted reason. When journalists and senators tried to get inside to inspect the living conditions of 1,500 young boys, security guards forcefully pushed them out and locked the doors right in front of the cameras. Later, leaked footage confirmed the worst fears. The children, who wore barcodes on their wrists to be scanned during food distribution, were held in conditions that human rights activists directly labeled a children's prison. The state machine proved that the civilian infrastructure of a retail giant could be adapted to isolate people in a matter of days. To fully grasp how this flawless control machine gained such power, we need to rewind the tape to its very origins. Walmart is America's ultimate mystery, born out of the provincial wilderness and conquering all space and time. If you have ever traveled through small-town America, you surely know this distinct, ominous, yet captivating aesthetic. Dead of night, empty rural highways stretching into the horizon, and suddenly a massive hangar illuminated by neon light emerges from the darkness. In its parking lot, capable of holding thousands of vehicles, sit a few lonely cars and endless rows of heavy semi-trucks bearing the company logo. These trucks resemble the blood vessels of a colossal, invisible organism that never sleeps. While millions of ordinary citizens sleep peacefully in their homes, this retail monster processes billions of terabytes of data, tracking the movement of every product, every truck, and every shopper. This is not just a supermarket, it is a closed, sovereign ecosystem with its own satellite fleet, a private army of logicians, and analytical centers that outperform government institutions in efficiency. And to understand how a simple neighborhood store evolved into a total surveillance system capable of influencing geopolitics and military doctrines, we must look into the deepest and darkest secrets of the Walton Empire. To understand the full scale of this corporate shadow, we have to look back at how the highest levels of the American military establishment became fascinated by this private network. There is a real, documented historical fact that alternative researchers later turned into the absolute foundation of their theory. During the Persian Gulf War in the early 1990s, the famous Operation Desert Storm, the United States military faced a severe, unprecedented logistics crisis. The Army simply could not keep up with the demands of supplying hundreds of thousands of soldiers deployed across the vast, hostile sands of the Iraqi desert. High-tech equipment, medical supplies, and basic rations got lost in transit. Manual record-keeping was agonizingly slow, and vital supply chains collapsed under their own weight. Desperate for a solution, the U.S. command turned to civilian corporate specialists for help. And guess whose specific model they took as a blueprint? Walmart's proprietary logistics system. Top experts from the retail giant actually helped the Pentagon rewrite their supply chain playbook. They integrated computerized tracking, introduced automated barcoding for heavy military cargo, and implemented the precise, just-in-time, rapid delivery principles that Sam Walton had perfected. It was during this high-stakes collaboration that a telling joke began circulating through the corridors of the U.S. defense establishment. If the Pentagon ran its supply chain like Sam Walton, we would have taken Baghdad in 3 days, and we would have done it with a 20% discount. But for alternative researchers and conspiracy analysts, this historic partnership became a point of no return. A dark theory emerged. What if this deep cooperation never actually stopped? What if Walmart is not just a private capitalistic business, but a strategic, deep-cover government asset operating under the direct auspices of the U.S. Department of Defense? Within the cold logic of this theory, every single Walmart supermarket in the country is a ready-made, modular, and perfectly engineered military post. Think about the physical layout of these properties. They possess vast, unpartitioned floor spaces, heavy-duty autonomous life support systems, and massive concrete parking lots designed to easily accommodate tactical vehicles or land transport helicopters. Most importantly, they are connected to a highly secure, closed, redundant logistics network. Those who subscribe to this theory claim that behind the commercial user interface of Walmart's inventory terminals lies a backdoor to a secondary system, one where a commander could order military ammunition just as easily as a batch of diapers. In the event of a catastrophic global crisis, a civil uprising, or the sudden declaration of martial law, these familiar suburban hubs could be handed over to security forces and transformed into fortified command posts or tactical distribution centers within a mere 24 hours. For decades, these whispers were dismissed as eccentric internet folklore. That is, until the story broke ground, quite literally, and descended into the terrifying world of what the alternative community calls DUMB, deep underground military bases. According to this sprawling theory, beneath the surface of the United States lies an entirely different country, a massive covert network of subterranean military installations completely isolated from the civilian world and interconnected by an ultra-high-speed magnetic levitation railway system. The dark connection between the retail giant and this underworld surfaced when researchers dug up an old, highly detailed map dated 1973. The document depicted a labyrinth of massive underground transport tunnels cutting across the entire continent, connecting Washington, D.C. all the way to deep cover installations in Maine and the rugged mountains of Colorado. Within this network, the specific geographical placement of major Walmart distribution hubs began to raise serious questions. Theorists pointed out that many of these hyper-efficient megastores were positioned directly over the key nodes of this alleged 1973 map. The theory suggested that when Walmart abruptly closed several massive stores for months at a time, the civilian excuses were just a smokescreen. The real objective was logistics of a different kind, using the massive enclosed perimeter of the building to conceal the installation of heavy industrial elevators. These hidden shafts would allow unmarked semi-trucks to drive directly inside the store, vanish beneath the floorboards, and unload heavy military hardware, mass provisions, and survival equipment directly into the growing subterranean bunkers. This terrifying concept of an underground America under construction seemed to find strange confirmation in the real world. Over the years, residents living in close proximity to these massive distribution hubs, particularly in states like Ohio, Texas, and Pennsylvania, began reporting a bizarre, unsettling phenomenon. People started waking up in the dead of night to the sound of strange, dull, low-frequency thuds reverberating through their bedroom floors, accompanied by an inexplicable mechanical hum that seemed to vibrate directly from the earth. When local communities demanded answers, official geologists quickly shrugged it off, attributing the anomalies to minor tectonic shifts, micro-earthquakes, or the environmental vibrations of hydraulic fracturing from nearby shale gas extraction. However, for the people listening to the ground shake in the dark, the explanation felt hollow. They became deeply convinced of a far more sinister reality, that right beneath their feet, an invisible machine was constantly boring through the bedrock, expanding a silent subterranean empire while the unsuspecting world above kept shopping. But what do we know about the owner? He was like a tiny little man who became the big powerhouse that could build it all. To truly understand how a simple retail business managed to cross paths with the upper echelons of military intelligence, we have to look back at the man who started it all, and the terrifying technological monster he built. It all began in 1962, in the quiet provincial town of Rogers, Arkansas, when Sam Walton opened the very first Walmart. Walton didn't just want to sell goods, he wanted to dominate the market by slicing profit margins to the bone and making up for it through sheer, unprecedented volume. But to pull that off, he had to master a resource more valuable than the products themselves: information. While competing retail chains focused on glitzy marketing in major metropolitan areas, Walton quietly weaponized logistics in the American heartland. He turned his stores into nodes of a hyper-efficient network, anchored by massive distribution centers. By the 1980s, this wasn't just a retail chain anymore. It was a cutting-edge technological titan. Walmart became the first major corporation to mass-adopt barcodes, transforming inventory into real-time data. But their crowning achievement came in 1987, when the company launched its own private global satellite communication system, splashing out a staggering $24 million. At the time, it was the largest private satellite network on Earth. Why on earth would a grocery business need its own space fleet? To establish an unbroken, encrypted digital link between headquarters and every single truck, warehouse, and cash register in North America. The system was so flawless that executives in Arkansas knew the exact second a bar of soap was scanned on a shelf 3,000 miles away. This unprecedented grid layout culminated in the creation of a facility hidden from the public eye, the Walmart Emergency Operations Center in Bentonville, Arkansas. Nominally built to protect supply chains from natural disasters, this situational command hub features multi-screen walls, live satellite feeds, and dedicated meteorologists, rivaling the command centers of NASA or the CIA. Its true terrifying power was proven in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina decimated New Orleans. While the federal government and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, were paralyzed by bureaucratic red tape, Walmart's Situation Room tracked the storm with pinpoint accuracy. Their automated logistics redirected hundreds of supply trucks loaded with water, food, and emergency supplies to the disaster zone, arriving 3 full days before official government aid. This raised a chilling question among alternative analysts. If a private megacorporation can predict a national crisis and deploy resources faster than the White House, who is truly in control of domestic security? The answer to that question seemed to take a dark turn when the calendar flipped to the spring of 2015, triggering one of the most intense waves of mass panic in modern American history. It all started in April, when Walmart management suddenly, with absolutely zero prior warning, announced the immediate closure of 5 massive supercenters across 4 different states: Texas, California, Oklahoma, and Florida. Thousands of employees showed up for their morning shifts only to find the automatic sliding doors locked. Right at the entrance, managers handed them pink slips. "You are all laid off. The store is closed effective immediately for at least 6 months." The official corporate excuse? Severe, widespread plumbing and sewage malfunctions that required catastrophic structural overhauls. The public was instantly skeptical. 5 sprawling, highly profitable, multi-million-dollar facilities, thousands of miles apart, breaking down due to identical pipe failures on the exact same day. It defied all mathematical probability. Local journalists and civic activists immediately began monitoring the shuttered properties. They checked with municipal utility boards. No emergency construction permits had been filed. They staked out the perimeters. No commercial plumbing trucks or excavated streets were ever seen. Instead, the night shift revealed a completely different operation. Under the cover of darkness, heavy construction crews began erecting massive, opaque security fences around the empty Walmarts, complete with barbed wire noticeably angled inward, as if designed to keep people in, not out. Unmarked white vans with tinted windows slipped into the loading bays, and eyewitnesses reported seeing heavily armed personnel in tactical camouflage patrolling the empty parking lots. This corporate blackout synchronized perfectly with a massive military announcement. The Pentagon had just authorized Jade Helm 15, an exceptionally rare, large-scale, unconventional warfare exercise involving U.S. Special Operations Forces across several southern states. The military claimed the exercises were designed to train troops for asymmetric conflicts overseas. But when the official operational maps leaked online, a collective shiver ran through the alternative research community. The states of Texas and Utah were explicitly color-coded and labeled as hostile territory. Panic spread through the population like wildfire. Citizens became deeply convinced that the federal government was covertly preparing for the imminent declaration of martial law, the systemic confiscation of firearms, and the mass roundup of political dissidents. In this fever pitch of anxiety, those 5 abruptly closed, heavily fortified Walmart supercenters, allegedly shut down over plumbing, were viewed as the centerpiece of the operation. To those watching the perimeter, the stores weren't being remodeled to fix broken pipes. They were being rapidly converted into black site detention facilities and temporary processing centers, proving that when the state decides to move, the friendly neighborhood store can vanish in the blink of an eye. This brings us back to the final, haunting case of this entire journey. When you take a step back and look at all these puzzle pieces scattered across the board, Sam Walton's satellite-driven logistical miracle, the deep-cover military collaborations during Desert Storm, the eerie silence of the 2015 closures, the whispers of subterranean networks, and the grim reality of the 2018 border crisis, they form a picture that is profoundly unsettling. It reminds us that the wildest alternative theories are rarely born out of thin air. More often than not, they are a hyper-inflated, deeply fearful reaction of a society that has subconsciously realized just how terrifyingly efficient corporate empires have become, and how deeply opaque our own governments remain. So, truly grasping the psychological weight of this, we have to look at the architecture of the control grid itself. Have you ever stopped to think about the physical design of a Walmart supercenter? From an architectural standpoint, these buildings are not designed like traditional commercial spaces. They are designed like sensory deprivation chambers and modern fortresses. There are almost never any windows on the sales floor. Once you step through those automatic sliding doors, you are severed from the natural world. The artificial humming fluorescent lights never change intensity, eliminating the concept of day and night. You lose your sense of time, your sense of direction, and your connection to the outside world. The floors are reinforced concrete, capable of withstanding the weight of heavy industrial machinery. The massive, flat roofs are supported by exposed steel trusses and equipped with industrial-grade autonomous HVAC systems that can independently filter and cycle air for millions of cubic feet. The aisles are intentionally designed to be wide enough not just for shopping carts, but for industrial forklifts and, if necessary, tactical transport vehicles. Whether by accident or by design, the standard blueprint of a modern mega retailer is virtually identical to the blueprint of a maximum security containment facility. The infrastructure is already there. Casa Padre proved that to turn a supermarket into a detention center, you don't need to rebuild it. You just have to lock the front doors. But the physical architecture is only half the trap. The true genius of this system lies in how it colonized our minds. In December 2010, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security officially announced a groundbreaking partnership with Walmart. Across hundreds of stores nationwide, digital screens were installed at the checkout lanes. As ordinary Americans stood in line waiting to pay for their groceries, baby formula, or Christmas presents, they were forced to watch an endless loop of public service announcements. Under the famous heavy-handed slogan, "If you see something, say something," the face of the Secretary of Homeland Security beamed down from the monitors, urging citizens to report any suspicious activity in the parking lots or aisles directly to store managers or local police. On the surface, it was presented as a community-driven call for vigilance against terrorism. But in the eyes of alternative researchers and sociologists, it was a massive psychological operation. It effectively weaponized the mundane. It transformed the familiar everyday American neighborhood store into an active node of a total domestic surveillance grid. It deputized the consumer, conditioning neighbors to view each other as potential threats while buying milk. It blurred the line between private commerce and state security until the distinction vanished entirely. When the state asks you to spy on your neighbors in the checkout line, the store is no longer a market. It is a panopticon. Walmart is America's ultimate mystery, a leviathan born out of the provincial wilderness that eventually conquered all space and time. We traded our privacy, our local communities, and our independence for the convenience of everyday low prices. And in doing so, we funded the construction of our own cages. If you have ever traveled through small-town America, you surely know this distinct, ominous, yet oddly captivating aesthetic. The dead of night. Empty rural highways stretching endlessly into the dark horizon. And suddenly, emerging from the pitch black, a massive monolithic hangar illuminated by glowing neon light. In its parking lot, capable of holding thousands of vehicles, sit a few lonely cars and endless, perfectly aligned rows of heavy semi-trucks bearing the company logo. These trucks sit idling, their diesel engines humming a low mechanical frequency. They are the blood vessels of a colossal invisible organism that never sleeps, constantly processing billions of data points, predicting our next moves, and waiting for the moment when its true logistical purpose might be called upon. In the end, perhaps it doesn't even matter if there is a secret high-speed train running through underground tunnels to Washington, D.C., or if there is a hidden back door in a retail software program meant for ordering military assets. What truly matters, and what should keep you awake at night, is the profound ease with which modern society is willing to accept a terrifying new normal. It is the chilling realization that a place where you walked freely with your children yesterday can be refitted, fenced off, and heavily guarded behind barbed wire tomorrow, and nobody will be able to stop it. It forces us to realize that if we lose our skepticism, if we become too comfortable, and if we stop asking the hard, uncomfortable questions today, we might really dislike the answers that are waiting for us tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next video, and who knows what else this world could be hiding from us. It was me, Saul. See you next time.